This is Lakit Desopoulos, Deputy Executive Officer with Engineering and Permitting. I want to welcome you all to our Permit Streamlining Task Force Subcommittee meeting. A few housekeeping items. Our restrooms are out of this door to your right. In case of an emergency, if we need to evacuate the building, we are going to exit out through this door. In the event we have to shelter in place, in the event of an earthquake or such an unfortunate event, I'll ask you to drop down, cover your head, and hold onto your chair. And with those opening remarks, I'm going to dive in right into our agenda. Perhaps what we can do is we can go through the self-introductions before we go through the agenda. Let me start with the lady to my right.
I'm Bridget McCann with Vista.
David Rothbart, Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts.
Bill Pierce, Boeing.
Bill Lamar, California Small Business Alliance.
Brian Roach, Information Management.
Rula El-Hajjaj, Senior Administrative Secretary.
Paul Wright, Information Management.
Amir Desbachs, Engineering and Permitting.
Saad.
Saad Karam, Information Management.
David Ono, Engineering and Permitting.
David Hauk, Engineering and Permitting.
Earl Hickman, Engineering and Permitting.
Machado, Engineering and Permitting.
And Neil Walker, Engineering and Permitting.
Terry Ann, Orange County Sanitation District.
Paul Borzan, representing MDI Space Systems.
Robert Wayne, Marathon Petroleum.
And just joining us is...
Tom Moskowitz, I'm the Chief Information Officer.
Fantastic, fantastic. Welcome all.
Did you get that plan over here?
Oh, which one?
Janet.
Janet Whittick.
Oh, and Janet Winnick from SEEB, is also with us, but absent at the moment. Do we have any? We don't have a phone connection, do we?
No, not.
Did you need a
Okay.
connection?
No, we don't. I think we are being screen and webcast anyhow,
Yes.
so.
Cast is live 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paul. And welcome again to all of you. So we have a pretty good agenda today. Can we put the first slide on?
You bet.
If we can. And just joining us is?
Christopher from Rely on Technologies.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. If we can go to the next slide is it the agenda? Yes. So very briefly, what we are going to do today, what we have in the agenda, because we'll have to do some time management. We have an hour and a half roughly, and we want to be able to cover all the items. If we run out of time, no big deal. We can always, leave some of those items, to our next meeting. But ideally, we'd like to cover each and every one of them if we are good enough, in our time management. So we'll see how it goes. So what we want to do is give you a brief overview like we do with all the streamlining task force meetings, where we are with our backlog reduction and permit streamlining effort. We have a new tool, a new and improved find that I think some of you may have already have accessed it and have had some experience with it. But for those of you who have not seen it yet, I think you are going to be very much impressed. I want to give you an update on the online tools and the work that we are doing in developing new as well as revising our existing policies. And last but not least, there were some issues and questions that some of you want to bring to our attention, like I believe, the emergency IC engines and perhaps the 1166 type of implementation issues. So we have an item dedicated strictly to that. And then time permitting, if there are any other issues that you guys would like to bring up, yes, I'll take it. We'll take those up as well. So very quickly, let's go to the next one. So you may recall back in June 2016, we had started our backlog reduction effort, and we continue to be doing well. As of the end of last quarter, which was December 2018, our permit application inventory was down 53%. So we had already exceeded our 50% reduction target that we established back in 2016. And if one excludes the permits to construct already issued, and focus on the net workable inventory only, actually our progress is even better, close to 55%. So it remains to be seen how the first quarter of this year is going to look like. Probably in a week or so, we'll have the numbers. We hope we can continue our progress, but as you can tell, we are plateauing a little bit because based on the production capacity that we have and vis-a-vis the number of folks working on the permit application processing, there is a soft spot, that we are going to be reaching, and it looks like we are reaching that level at this juncture. We have
So
a few.
The backlog is almost.
The backlog when we started was at 50%.
Right.
We are already, 53, 55% lower, so for all practical purposes, we have exceeded the target. Now, there are a few red spots there, as you can tell, some of those are on the workable category. We never like to use that term because regardless how difficult they are, we still want to invest some time and see whether we can get rid of them. But for all practical purposes, when you look at the numerical target, we have already met, in fact, exceeded it. There are a few headwinds that are working against us. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware and be cognizant of. This past March, March is a critical month for the entire agency because that's when we get our retirements. And we got more retirements than we were anticipating. There are a variety of reasons. I don't want to bother you, with those, but that pushed up our vacancy rate unexpectedly. And hiring new engineers while the recruitment is going on, it's a pretty lengthy process. And even once you bring new engineers in, it takes a while to train them. It takes 2 to 3 years for them to come to their optimal production permit processing capacity. So these are variables that are working against us. So we are trying, and also there are internal transfer requests because AB 617, there are new positions opening up, so people want to try new different things. And obviously that is working against us as well. So we are trying to balance those variables with what needs to be done in terms of keeping, the permit production rate going. So we'll be briefing you as we meet in the future. We'll see, how well we do in balancing those two countervailing, variables. So that's where I'm going to stop with respect to the permit backlog. Janet, you had a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And this chart is wonderful. I was looking at that and got really excited by all the progress that's been made. I wonder, though, when you talk about the headwinds, do you have an anticipation of how many new permit applications might be coming out of the BART rules and the change with reclaim?
Look, nobody knows the exact answer,
Okay.
but I can give you there are roughly 200, I can give the boundaries, I guess, the ranges, right? There are roughly 260 facilities in the reclaim, how many?
258.
258 now. We lost a couple of facilities. So 258 left, but altogether, there are 2,400 equipment operated by those facilities. So hypothetically speaking, depending how the landing rules are structured, how the BART limits are structured, could be up to 2,400 equipment that will need to be revisited. So it's a pretty big number. If you look at those applications up there, the remaining ones, which are close to 2,400, okay? Now, these are all reclaim facilities subject to reclaim facility permits. So in theory, we may be getting only 258, reclaim applications, but they'll be almost equivalent to 2,400 applications. So the numbers can be misleading, but it's a big number. Okay. It's a huge number. It makes us very nervous, but we'll deal with it when it comes. So
Lucky, just to be clear, out of the 258, you're estimating that 2,400 pieces of equipment in there?
Yes. Yes. So it could be if every single equipment will have to be upgraded or modified, that 2,400 represents, the upper worst case scenario. Now, hopefully, many of those equipment, will be already be meeting BART, and they won't need to be revisited. I can't tell you a priori how that picture is going to look like, but we are preparing for that eventuality. And what we have been trying to do here is, even though we met our backlog reduction targets, we've been trying to push downwards, and create a cushion for ourselves so that we are a little better prepared, when those additional reclaim applications come in, that thing doesn't blow up, out of proportion. But it's proving very difficult to further push the inventory down. Theoretically, you bring a lot more people in, yeah, hypothetically speaking, probably you can bring it down a little bit more, but it's not a reality, because, we have finite resources, financial resources as an agency, so we cannot bring in additional new engineers beyond what we have budgeted for. So,
And I guess I just want to add that, our experience with removing a couple of these facilities out of the reclaim, we found it to be very time consuming. It's not really as easy as just going in and slapping a permit condition on the facility and getting them out. There's a lot of work that needs and analysis that needs to be done before we can convert those permits into command and control permits.
And it's something that we'll be working very closely with Ron's group, because when initially the facility permit program was developed to address the reclaim program, it was developed, around the reclaim program, but it wasn't designed necessarily around the phase out, So as we are experiencing through Bill's facilities with that we are taking out of reclaim, that a lot of mechanical issues, with the way the program is functioning or not functioning, simply because it wasn't designed to address this phase out business. So we'll put our heads together, see what can be done in the in near term, so that if the work can go on. In the long term, we'll probably have to develop new programs, but unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of doing it now, because developing these kind of new facility programs is a very lengthy process, So, and we don't want to do anything in transition while there are still variables at play, So, so anyhow, but these are some of the difficulties that we are dealing with. Any other questions on this one before we move forward? So let's go to the next item that I think you'll find quite exciting and interesting. We had a significant upgrade on our fine system. And Ron, are you going to do the honors, or should I be?
Well, so I'll introduce it very briefly. Our fine system.
Go to the next one, if you don't mind.
Our fine system is, I could say pretty confidently, one of the most used tools on our website, if not the most used tool on our website. And for years, it's been chugging along, and we didn't really make any major changes to it. But since I've been on board, we've been making a lot of changes everywhere, and we focused in on Fine to really give it a new facelift, make it look more user-friendly, and also add something very important, which is we finished our GIS projects. We added actually mapping to Find as well. So if you haven't used Find in a while, you probably want to take a look at it, because it's really exciting, and we're going to show you a preview of it today. And to be giving the presentation is not just one of my staff that's a project manager or a supervisor. He is a supervisor, but he's actually the original developer. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
The original developer of Fine, and the person who just recently upgraded Fine to its current state, which you're going to see right now. So let me introduce Brian Roach to you, and he's going to go ahead and give the presentation.
Thank you, Ron. So, yeah, like Ron said, this Fine system has actually been in place for a number of years, but we just upgraded it recently to make it mobile friendly, to make it more user friendly, and to add a few new features. So if you've used it before, some of those new features will become obvious. For those of you who haven't used it before, it's basically a web application that allows you to search for facilities based on the name, based on the address, or you can search for a facility ID, an application number, NOV or NC, that kind of thing. Go ahead to the next one. And the information that Find provides is details of the facility, like the name, the address, industry code, things like that. It provides an equipment list. It provides a list of NOVs and NCs. Provides AER, AER emissions, hearing board cases, transportation plans, and we also have a lot of documents available. So we've been making an effort here at the district to take a lot of our paper documents and put them in an electronic format and upload them to our on-base server, so we're showing that as well. So can we go over to a browser, and I'll actually give you a live demo of Find.
Mhm.
Chrome is fine.
Is it fair to assume that all of you guys have used at least the previous Find at some point? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Often, huh?
Sure.
3 times last week.
All right.
You got it.
Great. So the way you find Find is by clicking on Find at the top here. We have a number of pages that are sort of help pages, introductory things, tells you how to use it. But when you click through here, this will take you straight to the application. And if you're familiar with the old Find, the same functionality is there. You can do all the same searches you did before. It just looks a little bit different. So for example, you're probably used to seeing different buttons for different search types. And we have that same functionality here. So what we can do is just run a search. And I'm not picking, let's turn off all caps. So what I'm doing is I'm searching for facilities on Archibald Street in Rancho. A lot of times people have questions about how the search works. Can you put in an asterisk or a wildcard? But basically the way it works is whatever you put at the beginning, it'll sort of fill out the rest for you. So Rancho would apply to, say, Rancho Cucamonga, Rancho Santa Margarita, anything that begins with that. If I just put in R, it would bring up cities that start with R, Riverside, etc. So, by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So, what we're looking at here, if you're used to the old one, obviously now there's a map, which is a lot different. It shows the search results on the right side in a list of facilities. And one of the things we've done to make it a lot more user-friendly is that you never actually have to go back to the previous screen to run your search again. You can just come in here and sort of adjust your search criteria. So if you wanted to get rid of this Rancho part and just search for Archibald, it'll do that automatically. So we wanted to make an effort to make it so that people can use this a lot quicker and a lot easier. If you hover over these facility IDs here, you can see it brings it up on the map. Likewise, you can go to the map and click on one of these orange dots and it'll show you which facility you're looking at. So I did a search for Archibald Street. I get a list of 139 results. What I can do is scroll through the results. It shows 10 at a time, but if I wanted to scroll through and see all of them, you could do that down here. We also have a function to export all of them out to Excel. What it will do is it will take those entire 83 or 39, and it will pump those all out into a spreadsheet. So you can view them all at once if you want to. And the way this works, you can also sort by different fields. You can change it ascending or descending here. And the way it works, let's pick one. If you click on the facility ID, it will bring up a detail page, which again has a map focused in on that particular facility ID. It has facility information on the top, the name, the address. We check if there are back fees due. And there are a number of sort of what we call accordion items here that will show various information for the facility. I'm gonna come back to this because I want to show you another feature. What we can do, like I mentioned before, is if you happen to know the facility ID you're looking for, you can type it in directly. Likewise with the application number, the NOV, NC, that type of thing.
So Brian,
Yes.
just to be clear, if I wanted to know how many gas stations there are on Archibald Street in Rancho Cucamonga, it would tell me that. Would it tell me how many gas stations there are in Rancho Cucamonga?
So one of the things that people keep asking for is to search facilities based on some of their other underlying information. For example, are they a gas station? Are they something else? Right now, this only allows you to search for all facilities based on the location. So if you wanted to search for a facility, say, Chevron or something like that, which is a gas station, you could type in the name there and you would get a list. But it doesn't search by types of facilities.
Would it bring up like a 7-Eleven with a gas pump?
Mm-hmm.
In it?
Yes.
Or Circle K with a gas pump?
It brings up all
In
facilities.
addition.
But you have to know they're there.
You have to know they're there.
You have to know,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're looking into adding the functionality of, on the drop-down, facility type.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Or sort of searching for, facilities with a certain type of permit.
Yeah, I think he's looking probably for facilities that would fall under the same standard industry classification, right? Same SIC. Not yet, but soon, hopefully. Yeah,
I'm trying to-
not yet, but soon.
It's on our list.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And we have a long list, by the way.
While you're on the subject, question for you. Actually, the upgrades are great. I was playing with it a little bit. But one thing I notice is if I know my facility name, I call it by a certain name.
Sure.
And I look it up by name, what's listed, I guess, in the permit may not be the name I call it by. And it seems like you're suggesting is whatever's in the system, it'll go by letter to search for things. It doesn't seem like it has the wild cards necessarily to find names quite as readily as what I would search for.
Right.
Is there any more ability to get greater functionality to look for a name more robustly?
Well, so all of these fields, like I mentioned earlier, it takes the first characters that you put in, and then it sort of fills it out from there. So if you type in CHE, you're going to get Chevron, you're going to get Chevrolet, that kind of thing.
But for my facility, say sanitation districts, nothing comes up.
Right.
But if I know the way the permit's listed, or if I finally find the way you describe my facilities, then I could find it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of confusion as far as looking at by name. It seems much more robust by street or city, though.
It searches by the exact facility name that we have in our database,
Exactly.
which I believe matches is what's on the permit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I can type in Boeing and that'll be a list. And then I can type in the Boeing company.
Right.
And that's a totally different list. So it's very
Interesting.
specific to
The way.
How
the
it
name
was
is listed
created in the
permit.
beginning.
Yeah,
how it's created in the beginning.
yeah.
Okay.
okay,
Very good.
so let me show you a few more things. I don't know how much time I have, but
Go ahead. I think everybody's interested, right? This.
okay. So you can put in, like I mentioned, a specific facility ID, and I'm not picking on anybody, but I like this one. And it'll go straight.
Somebody's picking on it.
It has a lot of data so I can show it off very easily. So just to really go quickly through these features, it went straight to that facility ID's detail page. If you click on equipment list, it will pop up this equipment list. You can click on this application number, it will show details for that application. We have down here, again, you can export this list to an Excel spreadsheet if you like. We have compliance, NOVs, and NCs. Again, click on one of these, it'll bring up the detail. We have AER emissions. Not all facilities report AER emissions, but for those who do, it will show up here, and it will show criteria pollutants and toxic pollutants. Again, this is all information that was on the previous version of FINE, so there's nothing radically different other than the user interface.
And documents.
And documents, which I'm getting to. So we have hearing board cases, if they exist. Transportation plan, it will show the latest transportation plan for Rule 2202. And then documents, like Ron mentioned, Previously, if you were looking at an individual application number, there would be a link to go straight to that document. What we've done now is we've consolidated it all in one spot and we've added additional document types. So if I wanted a permit, I could go to this permits page and it will bring up a list of documents. You hover over this, click on it, and it will bring up the actual facility permit to operate, which you can print out or save, do whatever you like with that.
Is that the point where you have all the permits uploaded, or is just some facilities have the permits associated?
I believe that's a work in progress, so there are a lot of permits updated, but I don't think, maybe somebody else can answer that question, but I don't think it's 100% right now.
Is there some sort of disclaimer then, when, like, if you go and look for a facility and you don't find the permit info, is there a little disclaimer so people know that it's not because there is no permit?
No.
Okay.
If you want to see the real list of permits, go back to the equipment list, and that will definitely show you everything we have. But as far as documents, there may be some gaps there, because, like I said, that's still something that we're working on.
I had a question on this. I mean, so you're using, I know it's on-base, is that?
Yes.
Okay. So historically, that seems to be the only issue I've ever had with this system. We continue to have, and so maybe it's just that ours doesn't play well, but when we try and open the documents, it always seems we're having issues with opening. I mean, do they work best in one browser versus another?
No, this is browser agnostic. It should work across all browsers. It works on mobile devices, but if there's a particular problem you're having, give me a call or an email. I'll give you my business card. And
maybe next time I'm in it, because that's the only, because it'll just spin forever and never actually.
Okay.
Have you tried it with the new?
No, and I have not tried that with the new system.
Okay.
I mean, that was on
Kick the tires, and like Brian said, if you have any issues, we will take your call and work with you on it.
Yeah, the next time I'm pulling something up, I'll give you a ring if there's, but that's just, it seemed the only item we've had in the past.
Okay.
There's a question.
Yes, I have a little bit of a problem when I want to print it. It doesn't look like, maybe I don't know how. If I want a specific page, I haven't been able to do that. If I want page 1, I have to print 6 pages. And then when I get the print, some of the words superimpose on each other, and I cannot actually have not much use for it.
Yeah, we're aware of that. So what he's talking about is if you try to print, for example, this page, it's not going to work quite correctly, and we're working on a fix for that, and you can know about that. If you want to print a document like the one I just brought up, that works fine. That's a PDF that you can download. Likewise, if you have a list of equipment, you can always export it to Excel and do all kinds of things there and print out that list. We are aware that if you, for example, try to print, this page here, it doesn't quite look right. So we're working on a fix to that. We went live back in February. We just recently issued another update to fix a few little things like this. So that's also on our quick to-do list. So,
Bill, you had a question.
Is there any repository on the website where one could find 219 and 222 equipment? It wouldn't be on fine.
No, they won't be.
Do you know?
But there will be at least the two. You are mostly interested. You won't find 219 equipment because they are exempt from permits.
Right.
But 222, they get registrations, right?
Right.
Well, we are going to cover it. We are working on we are trying to move to the electronic format, and we are pretty close to it. So in not too distant future, the answer will be yes. It's no right now, but it's going to be yes, in a very short time frame.
It's on the list.
It's not even on the list. I mean, it's jumping off the list. It's coming to the table.
It's actually a separate project.
Yeah.
That's part of a bigger project.
Yeah, we'll cover it. We are making good progress on that.
But Bill, if you want that list, we can get it for you, but we have to go to the public records process.
You mean for 220, for
Yeah,
222, yeah.
How much 219 equipment is out there,
A lot. In terms of numbers.
Scientific terms here. Not a lot.
In numbers, you mean?
Yeah,
222 or 219?
219.
Thousands and thousands.
But you really don't know, I mean, an exact number.
Right. No.
No.
I mean, there's no
That's why they
inventory.
come up here
Yeah.
in another with
Yeah.
CARB.
Okay, yeah,
But the answer is you don't really know.
yeah, right. I mean, there are no records, but we know, like for the smaller equipment, like gensets, less than 50 horsepower, there are thousands of those, out there. So much improved functionality on the Find, and much improved user friendliness. We are not done. We continue working on it further improving, but I'm hoping, that you guys like what you see, compared. Yeah.
I had one last question, just about the functionality. Just curious why, when we're processing permits, in Find it will show that a permit's been approved or issued, but it really hasn't yet.
Well,
We'll get to that also.
Oh, we'll get.
Well, I'm gonna.
Okay, you're good. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's,
But I think there is two items that should process. There's one that gets approved by the system, by our computer system, and then as soon as a permit is granted to our NSR program, it shows up as it being approved. But by the time you get it in your hand, it might be at least 1 or 2 weeks delay.
And I only ask that because my customers know enough, they can go into Find and they can see it. And then all of a sudden I'm getting calls that, the permit's been approved, why haven't you given it to us?
Right.
And I'm like, no, it has not.
Hopefully,
finalized.
Hopefully when we talk about the application dashboard, we can talk about this a little bit more. But then you can go into the application dashboard, and as part of the diary listed in the application dashboard, you will see when that permit was approved and when the permit will actually got mailed.
So, no, it's just curious about that.
maybe that's a good segue to our next item.
So if I could.
Yeah,
quick
please,
comment.
Janet. Yeah.
This is wonderful and really like where it's going, and recognize that you have other stages planned. Kind of maybe a two-part question. I wonder if you've been reaching out particularly to community stakeholders and kind of showing them and also getting input in terms of what future changes they want. And part of the reason why I was talking to an EJ researcher lately about the reporting program at ARB, so separately, but her comments were she really wanted to know spatially where the permits were located. And so I'm going to show her all of these updates with the mapping because I think this satisfies a lot of that data need, but there may be further tweaks that different community or researchers want to see out of the system that you might as well kind of incorporate into the work plan. Maybe like clustering, being able to draw around an area and see all permits come up, just like permit type would be very relevant.
So, yeah, we've been doing like a little bit of a dog and pony show, and we're continuing to, including this meeting, right? So, we're just, like Brian said, we just went live with it, and so now we're like reaching out and we're getting some feedback. We're taking in that feedback and making changes as appropriate, and we're prioritizing and going forward with that. So some really good ideas that you've mentioned as far as the clustering, like drawing a picture. One of the other things that somebody else mentioned this, and Brian really brought this to my attention, which is we have a whole GIS open portal on our website, and we have Find, and now we're, people are like, well, I go to the GIS open portal to grab some data, when I'm in Find, do I have to go in and out of each one? It's like, right now, yeah, you kind of do. So we're like, wait a second, can we mesh these together, or can we create some type of interface where when you're in Find, then you can click on a link, and then it, at the minimum, brings you to the open portal, so you can get that information too. So we're definitely reaching out to the community. We're going to be doing a lot more than that than we've been doing, so far. So in the future we'll be doing more. And then again, we're taking that information in, and we're identifying what we will do, and then prioritizing how we're going to do it.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Brian, did you want to?
It is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So, Lucky, if we have a few more minutes, I can kind of show some of the things. Maybe that would be helpful for you.
Very quickly.
Very quickly?
We are running out of time.
Ron mentioned an open data portal. If you go to online services, GIS open data.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Open data portal.
which we just went live about 6 months ago.
Click on facilities, yes. So what it's going to do is it's going to show a map of our basin, and there's going to be, it takes a few seconds to load, but there's going to be a clustering of facilities here. You can zoom in to a particular neighborhood and see dots that represent a facility. And it has a link here which goes to, guess where? Find
Perfect.
straight to that facility. There are, if you go up here to these tools on the map, you can do things like put in a circle that has a specific diameter and see all the facilities that are in there. You can draw a rectangle and get a list of facilities, that kind of thing. So,
Well, that's a question I asked you earlier, so you can do it, but you just have to do it a different way.
but this is strictly looking for facilities. It's not looking for the types of permits like you guys were mentioning. So again, this is.
It cannot distill it just to the gas stations. Yeah, not yet, you know.
Well, but I think you can, because
Yeah.
what you're doing, what we're providing you is an Excel spreadsheet. So you can download that whole list of information into a spreadsheet and do a quick data search for a spreadsheet, for gas stations.
Yeah.
Or so that information is exportable from the system into your.
It just takes several steps to do that.
It just takes but it's that functionality is there.
I think there was one more question.
Yes, one more time, how did you get to this site?
I went to, let's see, online services, GIS, open data.
And with the GIS Open Data Portal, just like Amir said, not only can you see the information, but you can export it out to Excel and CSV formats so that you can do whatever you want with it. And we envision actually developers in the private sector taking this information and creating their own type of apps and make it useful. So we're looking forward to that kind of work on the innovation on the outside. Brian, did you want to show anything else?
No, that was it.
Any other questions for us?
Excellent, fantastic. Thank you, Brian and Ron. Great job, and I think everybody's looking forward, to what is coming next, right? That's great. Yeah. So again, that's a good segue to our next item. So as part of our permit streamlining and backlog reduction effort, we are trying to automate to the extent we can some of our permitting functions, and we've been focusing on developing online tools. And Mr. Deshvash to my left here is going to be doing the honors to give you a status update on where we are with those.
It's one little slide, but that actually has quite a lot of information on it. So hopefully I can go through it a little faster because I want to give Lucky some time to do the other parts of this. That's on the agenda. So recent updates, online permitting. So as we discussed last year, we had released the 2 gas station dispensing modules and the spray booth module. It's available online with limited access. We're still looking for companies to come to us and test the modules. We think these modules are a lot more complex than the dry cleaning, and it warrants to have additional testing before we can release them for use without any hand-holding. So if there is any volunteers, we're still looking for volunteers, and any help would be greatly appreciated. But one thing that I wanted to specify is that you don't need to, even if you don't get an application online, you can still submit your applications electronically through this process to us. So just because, maybe the limitations are going to prohibit you from getting a permit online, but you can still use it electronically to submit applications. And even that will help us quite considerably, because then we can see how it's interacting with the users, and where we can improve the program. So if if there's any volunteers, we would appreciate it, and hopefully we will get some additional volunteers. What we've been doing with some of the improvements, we're looking continuously how we can improve these modules, but something that we have done is that we have improved the accuracy of the mapping that we do in the modules. Basically, it allows us to do better distance calculations from the facility to the receptor, whether it's residential, commercials, or the schools. We're doing internal testing with that, but hopefully we should be able to release that sooner sooner than later for general public use. So any questions on the online permitting? If not, I'm going to go with the online filing. In addition to the 3 modules that we have, we're also working on our phase 2, part of our automation system, which deals with the Rule 222s and the 400E form filings. We have developed more than 10 new modules for the Rule 222, which basically deals with the more popular filings that we get, and then when those are done, we're going to finish up the rest of the modules. But those 10 plus are being released for internal testing, and hopefully we should be able to release them soon for public to use. And we have worked on some of the 400E form filings. I think we're going to get maybe close to 10 of them in the next week or so for internal testing. So that would be something that we're trying to use and for our automation process, help with the online filing, but then also using it for phase 3 process that we're planning to develop, which allows us to do paperless permit processing. So don't use any paper and just move to electronic processing. Any question on that one?
An electronic permit application. I noticed in the March 1st civil filings and civil penalties report, we got about 10 or 12 facilities that apparently got in trouble with you guys for Rule 203. Now, I don't know what those are, if you're going to find. But is there a way, I mean, if somebody's operating without a permit or something like that, or a violation, or is there some way that you could make part of that settlement, have them do this online, bring them in, or you go out, or have
That's a very good idea.
we never, depending on what.
We don't know what those infractions are, to be frank with you, so we are a little bit in the dark there. And initially, at least at this stage, at the initial development stage, it was never our intent to force people, towards the online tool. Rather, we want to give them the option, you can do online, you can do paper application, but at some point, if this thing is pretty easy to use, user-friendly, perhaps we should entertain the idea of pushing people towards that.
Let them off the hook. I'm just saying, as part of the process of
dealing
with this violation, whatever it is, you're really you're offering them a helping hand rather than a stick.
Got it.
Frame it as a carrot, not a stick.
Yeah. Well, if they happen to be related to these applications, maybe that's a good idea. So
I think we need to look back into that and see how we can use the modules.
So, and with respect to the 222, we think pretty soon we'll be able to go live, and deploy them, in the public domain. And then within a year's time, perhaps, the whole thing, it's going to be all electronic. And with the 222 applications, for sure, we would like the public to use those rather than the paper application, because it's pretty straightforward. It's a lot simpler, than the actual permit applications. And then you'll be able to do all sorts of different queries, automatically on the web, so.
All right, so next topic, Title V online posting. So if you recall last year, we came to the task force and we talked about creating or generating Title V permits electronically and mailing electronic forms, permits instead of the paper forms, and making those forms available online. We're still working on that project. We haven't abandoned it, but we've come up with some unexpected issues that we're trying to resolve. However, we had made a commitment to EPA that we are going to have all of our Title V permits online, and Brian actually took some of my thunder by bringing up one of the Title V permits on the screen. But I'm pleased to state that 90% plus of our Title V permits, the actual permits that was transmitted to the facilities, are available online, and you can find them either through Find, or you can go to our permit page and view those title files online. And as we update, modify, or renew these permits, the latest version will be uploaded into the system for facilities and public to review. Now, as I explained earlier, we are still working on the electronic generation of the permits. One of the issues that we have that we need to overcome is finding the correct email address for the responsible officials and the contact of the facility so we can electronically mail these permits. So we'll be reaching out to the facilities in a very near future to get them to update us on the emails for the responsible officials and the contact staff at the facility so we can proceed with our electronic generation and mailing of the permits.
That's a follow-up to the notification rules that you just
Yes.
amended here last month or last or something.
Yeah, that would be also part of that whole process because that's a whole complete different issue outside of the Title V posting on
The responsible official, sometimes someone at the top's not going to look at this. Is there a delegation list, or could there be a multiple email list to make sure it gets to the person who really deals with the permit?
We can send the Title V permit to as many recipients as you guys wish. We just need to have a list of the emails so we can transmit the information.
So you're trying to go to the responsible official to get that list?
We have to notify the responsible official.
Right, but I'm just sort of saying, if you go to the lower level, we'll probably be able to get a hold of the responsible
Yes,
official.
well, we are required to notify the responsible official. So there will be an email to the responsible official. But we will send it, as I said, to as many recipients as you guys wish. We just need to have a database created for the list of the recipients so then we can transmit these Title V permits electronically.
And you guys should also have Title V contact person, right?
Yes.
So when you send out that email, you should see.
We used to call that the designated jailee.
Just curious, how visible is the information on the responsible official to the public?
It is on their Title V permit section.
And but is this going to make it even more accessible, like just click a button and sign up?
Well, we already, yeah, it would be. I mean, if, as we speak, if somebody contacts us and asks us for a responsible official for any particular facility, we route them to a public records request. And once that staff or that responsible official has been identified, it's public records.
Understood. That's an extra step somebody has to go through to get that information. Versus having it readily available online.
Well, like we're trying to collect that information and then make it available. And I'm not sure if you want all that information to be readily available. You'll be approached by a lot of other people trying to contact. But we will have it available. We're working on it. You know, as Bill said, you know, we're trying to collect large amount of information as far as the contacts, email addresses for all the changes that we made to all the Reg 3000, Reg 2s, and Reg 11 rules that we made for electronic and publishing and noticing. Okay.
This is it? Oh,
There's no,
there's one
questions
more.
on Title
Yeah,
V online
yeah,
permitting?
yeah, okay.
No, okay. So the last item that we wanted to talk about is our pending application dashboard. I think we showed some screenshots last year of what we're trying to do. We're pleased to announce that the program is development is complete, and we have it's been released for internal testing and data testing. Just to jog everybody's memory, the program or this application dashboard was our governing board instructions to us to have transparency for both public and the facility of what is the status of their application as it's being processed. What the program, there's three basic items that the program will do. One is allows the facilities and public for that matter, and it's going to be an access through the FIND system, which is not there yet, to track, see the status of their application as being processed. Now, earlier, Bill talked about that, you know, well, if you go to FIND, it will show the permit has been issued, but we don't have the permit on hand. So what the program will do is will actually provide a list of diaries as the application is going through the process, when it was received, when it was assigned, when additional information was requested, when the facilities provided the information back, when was the permit issued, when was it actually mailed. So all that information is going to be listed as a diary. And also the program will show whether the application is in a holding pattern. And if it's in the holding pattern, whether it's something that we need from the facility, or it's something, the decision that needs to be made by SCAQMD, or it's ready for processing, and referring back to diaries, we can determine whether or not, why is it stuck and why is it not moving forward. The other item that the program is going to show is the actual number of the days that the application is with us. So it will track how many days, when it was arrived, how long it took before it was pre-screened, and then it starts a clock and measures the number of days that it has passed since the application was deemed complete until the permit was issued. So puts us on the spot, making sure that we're processing all the applications in a timely manner, but also provides that information to the facilities where they are, and within the 180 days that we have given ourselves to issue that permit. But what it also does, for the first time, it provides us with a tool to actually determine how long it's going to take us to process a particular type of equipment. Because now we're tracking this when it came in and when it was processed. Before, we had to do a lot more research for that particular process, but it gives us a new metrics. The other metric that is providing for us is now we can generate internal reports for our staff to see what is the workload, how many applications they have that is getting close to 180 days, what are the issues, and then also helps our managers with the distribution of the applications and inventory that they have.
You got what you did is you have an electronic aging list is what you have.
That's right, yeah. Exactly. Live,
Yeah,
dynamic, not static.
We're very
We
excited
are
about this.
extremely excited about this new program because not only increases accountability, transparency, but also increases accountability, and both internally as well as externally. Often, applicants and us will talk, past each other, they'll submit an application, they're waiting for their permit, thinking that it's being processed. Sometimes, we'll be waiting for information from them. They are completely unaware for whatever reason. And we are pointing fingers at each other. Well, this, hopefully, will address that issue because it will put on black and white, pretty much, is it stuck because the application processing stuck because the engineer is waiting for some information from the applicant, or is it that the applicant has submitted the information but is being processed internally? So it will improve that drastically, and I don't know, it's going to be a game changer for the way we are operating here at the agency. So we are kind of excited. We are testing internally. We are going to start populating with real permit information pretty soon. And once we know it's working well, then we'll put it on the public domain, hopefully not too distant future in the next few months. We're not talking about
that should be a huge preventative of ever having another backlog.
I think, yes.
Unless you guys go on strike or something. But with all these different eyes looking at it.
Yes.
Somebody's bells will go off.
Accountability.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about the internal reports that are being created because it just shows us in live, real time, where we are. How many applications are within this many days? How many applications are within this many days? So it's going to help us a lot. It's going to be a game changer for us.
So we'll be bringing some screenshots again, perhaps at our next meeting, just like we did with the fine system. I'm anticipating by the next time we meet, it's probably going to be ready to go live, or definitely for a demo. So anyhow, we are excited about it. Any other questions? Yes, David.
I brought this up in the past before about, and I think this is all good, being able to monitor the tracking of the permit application. But I think, what's going to really help streamline the whole permitting process is the actual information that goes into the permit application. So I mentioned about modifying some of the Form E forms. There's way too much information that we're asked to put in the application forms. and also about having, standardized permit conditions for, common equipment types. So I don't know what kind of effort you've been putting into this.
Yeah, well, standardizing is part of the auto automation process.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are looking at the other equipment, but we try to get these modules that we have already created, see how we're going to be working with them and how find the pitfalls that we're facing, that we can see through these before we can add more modules. So that, let's say if it's an identical piece of equipment, let's say you have a boiler that burns natural gas, it's less than, between 2 to 5 million BTUs. Well, yes, the conditions should be relatively the same, unless there are other circumstances that makes this particular permit different from another permit that would be identical to the same piece of equipment. But we're very cognizant of that. We're working on it, but there's just so many projects that we can work on at the same time.
Add to what Amir said. So definitely the online permitting tools were our first attempt to standardize the permitting, at least for these simple equipment. There's no haggling, if I can borrow, David's term. So there are standard permit conditions, so it was an effort in that vein. But also, we are starting the development of the permit handbook, or the update of the permit handbook, which is, our permit handbook is more than 20 years old. Okay. I mean, it's literally, perhaps there is some useful information, or it was useful back 30 years ago. Things have changed drastically, so it's not even in any usable shape. So we are going to start from scratch, and we are going to be tackling not 1 or 5 or 10 equipment, but dozens of equipment. And the idea there is for us not only to provide the process description, how the different processes operate, what the emission sources are, but how we go about in issuing permits. What are the hotspots? So as part of that, our goal is also to start developing the standardized permit conditions, not just across different equipment, across different units. It's going to be an ongoing effort because we're not going to develop in the next 3-4 months, but what we intend to do is every quarter put out this many new processes, and put it on the web. Make it available to our internal staff for their training, for their understanding how we process permits. Make it available on the web so that the applicant prepare for any audit. As our brethren like to audit us quite often.
And if I may, just to, you brought up the issue of the why would be all of a sudden subject to BACT or NSR issues. Well, let's say, we give you the 50 hours for the month, and then, okay, so if we don't know how many hours you're going to be using that 50 hours in a month, it could be 24 hours in one day. So then we have to go and figure out a way how to implement that. And let's say we put 24 hours for that one day. Well, BACT is a pounds per day process based on your PTE.
Right.
So now all of a sudden you have an engine we put in an NSR account that you're operating 24 hours a day, and that PTE for your facility all of a sudden gets increased exponentially.
I just get stuck with, is it really potential to admit, when you look at the annual basis, can't really do that?
It's a pounds per day process.
You have to distill it down to pounds per day. Somehow you have to come up with a convention that derives a pounds per day figure. And the currency, the bank's currency, only accepts pounds per day.
Yeah.
And that's where things get stuck. So let's continue the discussion, and because you guys are not asking for a 24-hour day,
No.
You're asking for something more reasonable, and it's not clear in my mind what a reasonable figure is, So,
well, we have
let's keep talking, and
so we can. And then you have to
we should be able to figure this out.
The consequences, if you go with 15 hours in that whole day, oops, all of a sudden the pounds per day PTE is
Just
going to go
merely the awareness if that's the way the process works would help.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was just I mean, this was a learning experience for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we had never seen this condition before on a permit because we were Title V NOx reclaim facilities, and so they had always just folded it in under the 50. So I mean, we learned a lot, and I don't know even if, as you're looking at e-forms, maybe that's something. I mean, we had never really paid attention to it before, but like in this new permit we were just issued, we folded in all the hours that were going to be required for testing of the upfront testing of the unit. Not something we'd ever really paid attention before because we'd never really had this monthly type of limit. And so maybe there's just as far as the form, maybe there's some additional, so that the permittees are aware of what they can do.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, the message got lost somehow, between the application submittal and
How the condition was
how the condition got developed. So isn't 1470 in our rule development, rule forecast report? No,
I don't think it's on.
Oh, it's not on. Okay, all right.
Not yet.
All right. Okay. That's fine. Let's continue the conversation. Okay.
But just
And,
be aware of the counts per day, offset bank, public notice.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we kept you not to.
Really-
Can I just go back to the, sorry, yeah, go back to the example I used for the R, 11 temperature engine. Our source testing requirement being more stringent than the rule requirements. Yeah, I mean, we have annual source testing requirement on permit, but the 11 temperature allows every 2 years. So, I mean, what's the basis for having requirements stringent monitoring requirements in a permit? Do you guys have that authority to have some?
I couldn't answer that, because unless you guys know what exactly had happened,
But
with,
yes, we do have authority to impose conditions just to make sure that the equipment is operating properly.
Right, yeah, but more
So-
stringent what the rule,
Yeah.
underlying rule requires.
And there are other underlying rules.
Mm-hmm, like what?
Well, I'm not familiar with
Right.
that evaluation.
there's gotta be a
It could be
reason,
14, it could be
I mean,
14,
it's
one
not just,
issue.
the engineer, woke up that day, and say, hey, forget about Rule 11,
Well,
10.2, I'm
sometimes
gonna.
the answer I get is like, well, because you guys said your engines are big. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's big or small, I mean, if it's 11, 10.2 engines, it should be consistent with what the
There's
rules.
gotta be some other reason.
And the same thing, like for instance, our, permit also requires annual toxics testing. What's the basis for that? I mean, it's a 1401, 1401 is only for initial source testing, but we have a routine testing requirements for toxics. Something that we expected a long time ago, but the more I look at it, it's like, what is the basis for all these conditions?
Uh-huh.
So, I don't think you can require something more stringent than what the rule says. I mean, that's,
Normally, there's gotta be some other overlapping rule that triggers that more stringent requirement. Otherwise, why would we
Right.
even ask,
right.
Yours is every 2 years. There are some other rules that require only every 3 years, every 5 years.
Ours is every year, 11.2 requires every 2 years,
Yeah.
or $8,076. What's enough?
It might have been when that permit was drafted, that condition, that requirement wasn't in the rule. Because Rule 11.2 has been modified several times, right?
So now you could go back and, revise
you
the
put a
permit to be
request?
consistent with the, right. But I'm having some pushback, so. yeah. Okay.
She's going to apply for a permit model.
Yeah.
I hear.
Yeah, we already did.
Oh, you already did?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Hey, you already got the answer, huh?
I didn't get the answer at all.
Not yet. Oh, all right. You got the A answer, okay, but not the one that I like. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a request for an item for maybe discussion for next meeting.
Yeah.
So for 11.9.1, we've been kind of running into a lot of complexities around permitting, and especially with the implementation schedule and the pressure on both facilities, I think in the district, when it comes to implementing BARC for that rule. I think permitting is going to be a really large piece of that, especially since a lot of it's going to be around turnaround schedules for the facilities. So if we can add that in.
Okay.
I realize that you don't want to necessarily think about all that while it's still in development, but I don't think we can wait until the very end when it's actually been adopted.
Okay. I mean, we'll typically try to shy away from things that are still in progress, especially in the rule development, but we are very cognizant, of the implementation and scheduling issues. We are just as concerned, or as
Right.
nervous as you are, or as your
We get the
membership
application.
is, so, yeah.
I still think
Well,
there's
this
things that you
part of
talk
the
about and
discussion,
think
fine.
about
Yeah,
even while it's in
absolutely.
development though, just because it's so
Okay.
complex.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, again, thank you very much, guys. That's all I have. Are there any public comments, or do we have a public comment here? I'm sorry?
I didn't fill out a card, so I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, go for it, Harvey.
All right.
Hold on, Harvey, 2 seconds. Okay, anytime.
Okay, my name's Harvey Eder. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. I haven't been to this group. My understanding is the permitting group.
Permit Streamlining. Yeah.
Permits, okay. Well, all this has to be done in reference to the solar renewable conversion that we're going through. So I know there are various rules involved, and they've all got to be individualized and streamlined and studied and implemented as soon as possible. Solar is the best available retrofit control technology. There's the district and the state to retrofit, and it's come down in price 70, 80, 90% in the last 8-10 years. It's got to be done equitably. Environmental justice, social justice, this is being looked at the PUC, CEC. We got 40% low income, the biggest inequality of any state in the union. And we're losing the middle class, stagnating wages. We've got big social problems, and this is taking the big picture. This relates to health costs. We see we're pre-existing conditions we may lose, everything else, housing, transportation. It's got to be all done together as quickly as possible. I want to alert people to a book I want to incorporate into the record called The Uninhabitable Planet, Earth After Warming by David Wallace Wells. Came out this year. It was on Bloomberg and CNN. Anyway, it says the rate of change is happening a lot quicker than we thought, and climate has got to get into this, and there's been some resistance I've run into with senior staff on the issue of stationary sources versus mobile sources, and that's well established. So there's a Supreme Court case from 12. It was the coating manufacturers against the district. The district case, the district won it. It says technology forcing, BART is. That means if the rule comes on 1, 3, 5, 10 years, cost effective, and it has to be done. That was a unanimous decision on 12 of the California Supreme Court. And so I want to get this book into the record, and also the April 8th Administrative Committee to the Board meeting, trying to get copies of the tape exchange with me, Dr. Burke and Wayne, and conceded that the only thing was contested was reclaim for cost effectiveness for solar, but everything else was conceded.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Harvey. Any other public comments? All right. Thank you very much all for attending, and can't wait, to see you again, at our next meeting. And David, yeah, so